you. Imagine this. It's May 5th, 1961. And what was probably a regular Tuesday for many Americans was actually a pivotal moment for a joint session of Congress because President John F. Kennedy was giving a declaration stating that by the end of the decade, America would land a man on the moon. Now, at this time, NASA didn't have the technology or even the blueprint to make such a declaration possible. But I'll paraphrase that President Kennedy was actually asking a bold question. What if we could do something different? What if we could land a man on the moon? President Kennedy's imagination in that what if moment led to one of the largest technological leaps that our country has ever seen. And we're still experiencing that today in how we think about space exploration. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would garner to say that healthcare is also at a what if moment. What if we could reimagine how to provide equitable, consumer-centric care and really drive towards transformation? What if imagination became the spark that changed everything that we did? Now, I recognize that imagination alone is not enough. And for some of you, you might be wondering if I'm going to do a magic trick. I'm not. But I do want you to think about the fact that imagination is what's missing from healthcare today. We talk a lot about innovation, but we forget that imagination is usually the vehicle in order to get there. Now, because imagination cannot stand on its own, I want to introduce you to the WAND methodology. The WAND methodology is a framework that I developed that allows you to connect bold strategies with imagination to actually drive towards actionable results. So I'm going to teach you how to watch, analyze, negotiate, and deconstruct the ways that we do things in healthcare to see if you can use imagination to drive the transformation that you're seeking in your organization. When you think about innovation, it often starts with observation, how you view the world. And a lot of times that observation requires us to look at things with fresh eyes. When's the last time you really observed the experiences of your staff? Observe the experiences of your patients, your constituents, maybe your clinicians, and allow those observations to really drive the trends that you're seeing and the experiences that they're having. Well, I'll give you an example of an organization that was trying to fix their patient satisfaction scores. They were looking at all the benchmark data, looking at how their peers in the market were doing this, and they couldn't understand why they couldn't do something different. That CEO had a brave and bold moment and said, let's look outside of the healthcare industry. And he took his leadership team, and we decided to look at the Ritz-Carlton model. We wanted to understand why was the Ritz-Carlton a hotel chain of choice. They studied the methodology of this white glove concierge experience that not only made people have memorable experiences during their stay, but made them repeatedly choose the Ritz-Carlton for their travel. That leadership team brought those insights back into their organization and overhauled their entire patient experience model. That not only changed their emphasis on patient satisfaction scores, but it changed the way they thought about care standards. And not only did they become the healthcare provider of choice, they created a new way of providing care. So what you discover beyond the familiar could be the spark that redefines how you lead and the results that you achieve. So as leaders, I encourage you, have your teams to observe beyond the status quo and to even sometimes look outside of healthcare to determine what we can bring back inside. Now, after you observe, we have to take all of those insights and start to investigate. And a lot of times when we investigate, we point to the monthly dashboards that we've so beautifully created. We point to the scorecards that tell us what our strategic priorities are for the year. But how often are we starting conversations with why do we have these outcomes? Why are we still seeing the outcomes that are here that we might not have intended for? Well, a lot of times it's because we're keeping things at the surface. But staying at the surface keeps you stuck in the status quo when real transformation is found when you dig beyond the ordinary. I'll give you another example. An organization was trying to address throughput issues, and they mapped out the entire journey of their throughput experience, and they started to understand, how do we find the operational gaps and some of the inefficiencies that's going on? And then how do we also address that there are variable outcomes depending on the constituent that has the experience? Well, they started to disaggregate the data. They started to look at different filters in a transparent way that made them see that there were variable outcomes that they hadn't intended. And they created a culture of why. Now, when they looked at their balanced scorecard, they couldn't finish the meeting without saying, why is this happening? And using that as a cyclic approach to make sure that they could understand how to unearth what was beneath the surface. The next piece is thinking about the importance of innovation tied to collaboration and compromise. We often think about the fact that resources are limited, shortages are real, and it makes it hard for us to really think about new ways to do things. But when resources are tight, creativity actually thrives. Because when you start to form unlikely alliances, new paths can be made to the same goals. I'll give you an example of a rural clinic in Oklahoma. They had a workforce shortage and was trying to identify ways that they could help to address their care capacity. Well, they decided to partner with a local university to help students that were interested in getting involved in the medical field to have real-world hands-on experience. Not only did that help to address some of the workforce challenges that they were having, but their talent acquisition team now inherited a built-in pipeline program that changed the faces of people that were coming in through the organization to serve. It changed the reputation in that community to identify ways for them to say, we all have a hand in thinking about the healthcare delivery model. It's important to think about the fact that silos no longer work. Departments that say this is our way of doing things must reach across the aisles and figure out ways to create new alliances and collaborations. How does your finance team work with your marketing team in a different way? How do you think about your clinicians working with your technicians in a different way? Finding ways to recognize that those interdisciplinary teams are going to be critical to the work that leads to transformation. The last piece of this is deconstruct, and this is probably my favorite one, because it requires us to say, how are we breaking down the silos, the policies and procedures of yesteryear that are no longer serving us in the future that's coming? Well, I'll give you an example outside of healthcare. For many, many years, candles were the only light source to illuminate a room. Candles became the staple in homes. There were candle holders, there were candle lanterns, there were even candelabras, different things of how a candle could help to produce light in a space. But it took a couple of people saying, is there a different way? Is there a different way for us to illuminate a space? And so many of those questions and investigations led to Thomas Edison changing the way that we thought about light and creating electricity in a way that changed the way that we could illuminate a space. So healthcare leaders, I'm encouraging you to think about this. In a world full of candles, be electricity. Be the type of leaders that are going to cause us to say, is this still the best policy to inform the needs of our patients and constituents today? Be the type of leaders that will have an electric environment that calls people to feel comfortable to challenge the status quo, to feel comfortable to contribute in a different way that leads us to think about something different. And if you don't want to be electricity, I'll give you a healthcare example to make it feel a little bit more comfortable. Telemedicine changed the way that the patient and provider experience could happen. It changed the way that we could think about access to care. Telemedicine didn't happen overnight. It took different trial and error moments to get to a point of being able to change the way that a patient could communicate with a provider. The same is true in healthcare. So I'll leave you with this. We are at a what-if moment in healthcare. And it is going to require us to have imagination, bold questions, and taking action to change and see the transformation that we're looking for. I leave you with these questions. What if your organization's transformation is tied to your imagination? What if the next set of legacy moments that we could leave for the generations behind us are tied to us reimagining what healthcare could look like? The future of healthcare is looking for a bold vision. What if you're the leader to make it happen? Thank you.